Okay, let's set the scene. Imagine it's February 2026. You're inside a high-tech war room in Rawalpindi, surrounded by Pakistan's most powerful generals. The screens in front of them are lit up with satellite images of Kabul, with little red circles pinpointing ammo depots and safe houses. But the targets they're about to strike? They're not who you think. They are about to go after the very monster they created. Then, on February 27th, Pakistan's defense minister drops this bombshell. Now, for decades, a statement like that, it would have meant only one thing: war with India. But no, he wasn't talking about India. This declaration of war was aimed at the Taliban government in Afghanistan. Yep, the exact same group Pakistan's own intelligence agency had trained, funded, and propped up for years. So how on earth did we get here? How did an organization that was supposed to be Pakistan's greatest strategic asset manage to become its absolute biggest nightmare? Well, it's a wild story, and it has a twist that, believe me, not even Pakistan's top generals ever saw coming. Okay, first up, an unthinkable war. Before we dive into the history, you've got to understand the human cost of all this. Because, like any war, this one has a devastating price, and it's being paid by ordinary people. The violence has just spiraled to a point where it's completely unsustainable. Just look at this number. Over 100. That's how many civilians are dying every single week in this conflict. We're talking about bombings at hospitals, attacks on schools. It's a full-blown humanitarian crisis. And to really get how it got this bad, we need to jump in a time machine. So, part 2, the creator's gambit. Let's rewind the clock all the way back to the 1990s, because this is where the story really starts. It begins with a calculated geopolitical chess move by Pakistan to basically forge a proxy army and completely reshape the future of its neighbor, Afghanistan. The whole motivation behind this was a military concept called strategic depth. The idea was actually pretty simple. Get a friendly, pro-Pakistan government installed in Afghanistan. Why? To create a buffer zone against their main rival, India. Afghanistan would essentially become Pakistan's strategic backyard. And you know what's crazy? The plan worked frighteningly well, at least at first. I mean, look at this timeline. In 1994, the ISI strikes a deal with this little-known cleric, Mullah Omar. They give him weapons, money, training, and just 2 years later, his Taliban fighters march into Kabul and take over the entire country. Then comes 9/11. The U.S. invades Afghanistan to topple the Taliban, and Pakistan publicly sides with America. But behind the scenes, it was a completely different story. For 2 decades, they played this incredibly dangerous double game, secretly sheltering and supporting the very same Taliban leaders the U.S. was trying to hunt down. So when the Americans finally packed up and left in 2021, and the Taliban swept back into power, you better believe Pakistan was celebrating like they'd won. But here's the twist. Here's where it all goes wrong. See, the monster that Pakistan had unleashed was never truly under its control. It had its own agenda. And now that monster was turning back to bite its creator. This is where we meet the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, or as they're known, the TTP. Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand the difference between these two groups. The Afghan Taliban, their goal was always to rule Afghanistan, simple enough. But the TTP, the Pakistani Taliban, they have a totally different goal: to overthrow the state of Pakistan itself. So while Pakistan calls the TTP its fundamental enemy, the TTP has sworn allegiance to the Afghan Taliban, their ideological brothers. You can see the problem here. I want you to just look at this number. Just for a second. 132. This is what that number means. In December 2014, TTP terrorists stormed an army-run public school in Peshawar. They went from classroom to classroom and systematically murdered children. 132 kids between 8 and 18 years old. It was the single deadliest terror attack in Pakistan's history, and it tells you everything you need to know about the TTP's brutality. Which brings us back to today. Part 4, a dangerous deadlock. This is where that complicated relationship between Pakistan, the Afghan Taliban, and the TTP has created this impossible, unwinnable trap for everyone involved. After the Taliban retook Afghanistan in 2021, TTP attacks inside Pakistan just went through the roof. This chart shows you the deadly result. In 2024, you're looking at over 2,200 people killed. A year later, in 2025, that number nearly doubled to over 4,000. This was a level of violence that Pakistan just could not ignore. And this right here, this is the central paradox. Pakistan is screaming at the Afghan Taliban to do something about the TTP,
But where are the TTP's leaders and fighters hiding out? Yep, they're getting safe haven inside Afghanistan, protected by their ideological brothers in the Taliban. It's the exact same move Pakistan pulled with the US for years, hiding everyone from Taliban leaders to Osama bin Laden himself.
So you're probably wondering, why doesn't the Taliban just crush the TTP and make Pakistan happy? Well, because they are caught in a classic trap. See, their biggest enemy inside Afghanistan is another terror group, ISIS-K. If the Taliban attacks the TTP, they're terrified that thousands of those battle-hardened TTP fighters will just switch sides and join ISIS-K. That would create an even bigger, more dangerous enemy for the Taliban to deal with. So they can't crush the TTP, and Pakistan can't live with it. The result? A deadly stalemate that explodes into open war. And all of this builds to our final section. Part 5, the ultimate irony. This is where Pakistan's grand 30-year strategy just completely and spectacularly backfires in the most ironic way you could possibly imagine. I mean, just look at this. The complete 180-degree reversal. Remember, the entire point of this policy, the whole reason for creating the Taliban, was to have a puppet state to use against India. And what's the reality today? The Taliban government is actively signing trade deals with India. They're welcoming Indian companies to build their infrastructure. They're calling India an important partner. It's incredible. What you're left with is this perfect, vicious cycle. Pakistan created the Taliban gave sanctuary to the TTP. The TTP is now waging a bloody war against the Pakistani state, and in a desperate attempt to fix it, Pakistan is now bombing the very country it spent decades trying to control. They're trying to put out a fire they themselves started. Which leaves us with the final nagging question. After decades of deliberately starting this fire and then pouring fuel on it, can Pakistan ever really put it out? Or is it doomed to be consumed by the very flames of its own making?